Stop lollygagging around. I know they do. They're coming. Slow but sure. Just like the rain. That has been. We'll blame COVID. That's right. Okay, you ready? Well, this morning we are very blessed, privileged. I've been doing this a long time, and ever since I was just a little feller and understood what was going on, because back in the olden days, we didn't have segregated things. The families were all together, and every time I heard we were going to have a missionary come in, I was excited. I loved missionaries. I loved to hear their stories, and I especially loved to see the pictures that they brought. And we've got a missionary among us this morning, and Jeff Green and his wife Patty is in the sound booth, and they are no strangers to Michigan, and he'll tell you about that. They were at Kentwood for a while, and then went to Kentucky. Wow, tell you, we shouldn't have been so mean to you that would drive you to Kentucky. That I said it first service. He got promoted, but that's not true if he went to Kentucky. But we're happy to have Jeff and Patty with us. Jeff is representing International Disaster Emergency Service, and so he's going to talk to us this morning.
Well, good morning. It's good to see everybody. Where's a good place for me to stand? Oh, right where I'm at? Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay back in the back? Okay, great. Thank you so much for having us today. And I grew up in Melbourne, Florida, so I'm a Florida boy, and ended up in Michigan for a time, and that's where I experienced winter for the first time, and experienced it in the fall. I experienced winter in the winter, and I experienced winter in the spring when I lived in Michigan. It was fun. And I think the first year I was there, Virgil, it snowed for 25 straight days. And I thought, snow day, and there was never a snow day. The roads are always cleared, and it's amazing. But anyways, my wife and I met at Kentucky Christian College. That's where we did our undergraduate study and went into ministry. And we've had just a wonderful ministries in Florida as well as in Michigan. And we served a time in Brazil as church planters there, and was able to see a church get planted there, and God has blessed that church, continues to this day, and has planted a few others, and just doing a amazing work down there. God has just been blessing us, and then we ended back up at Kentucky Christian University now, and we worked there for the last 9 years. And then last year we joined International where am I at? I'm at International Disaster Emergency Service. I love IDES, and I love the churches that I get to meet. I'm the director of church relations, and so I get to go and meet the people that support us and do such an amazing job at connecting us around the world. Some of the missionaries that you support, we've probably have helped in some way or another. We had one missionary that came by our offices not too long ago, and she just looked at me and said, "We love IDES because you're our mission. You always come to our aid," and we are so grateful for that. So let me share with you a little bit about IDES and what we're all about, and share with you some of the things that we've been doing. International Disaster Emergency Service, and let me give you a little bit of a history there. We were founded by Milton and Janet Bates, and Milton was a pattern maker from Marion, Indiana, and he was at the Marian Church of Christ. And after witnessing an event, it was in Bangladesh, where over 500,000 people were killed in this incredible storm. It was a typhoon. He saw on television a reporter showing the damage and showing the devastation. And the reporter asked, "Won't someone help these people? Won't someone help these people?" And they began thinking about those words and began to pray. And they began to wonder, where are the Christian churches of Christ, the restoration churches? Why aren't we involved? Why aren't we there? How is it that we can't be there? And so they began to pray about it and think about it, and they were saying someone needs to do something about that. So he asked, he said this, he said, "We would have a stronger witness in the world if we would all cooperate together. If our churches could come together, we could have a bigger global impact." And in the next slide, we see what happened. In IDES, it was founded in 1973 as a relief agency for the Christian churches of Christ. So many of the denominational churches, like the Baptist churches, they have a relief agency. Maybe you've heard of Samaritan's Purse and all the work that they do. But back then, there wasn't anything for the Christian churches, and so we founded it in 1973. And their kitchen was their office. Now think about 1973. The only ways of communicating was through telephone and through the typewriter, through the letter. And so that's the way they communicated. Richard Sprague was then soon joined them, and for the next 10 years they operated out of their homes. But in the mid-1980s, they purchased some offices in Kempton, Indiana, where the ministry began to flourish. And its purpose, the purpose of IDES, is simply helping suffering people and sharing hope and the love of Jesus. So we accomplish our mission through the support of churches and individuals on behalf of international ministry and mission partners. In Acts chapter 11, verse 27, it says, "During this time some prophets traveled from Jerusalem to Antioch, and one of them, named Agabus, stood up in one of the meetings and predicted by the Spirit that a great famine was coming upon the entire Roman world. This was fulfilled during the reign of Claudius. So the believers in Antioch decided to send relief to the brothers and sisters in Judea, everyone giving as much as they could. This they did, entrusting their gifts to Barnabas and Saul to take to the elders of the church in Jerusalem." So, churches and individuals entrust their gifts to IDES, and 100% of every individual gifts go to suffering people. So, if you were to write me a check today for $100, if you were to write me a check today for $100, if you were to write me a check, I did this one time, and somebody actually wrote me a check for $100. I came back and gave it to my boss, and he looked at me and said, "Next time, if you were to give me a check for $500. So every individual gift that we have, its purpose is to help suffering people. Our operation only comes out, a portion of the church gifts covers our operational expenses. At IDES, we have 14 full-time staff people. And that, to me, it's amazing to behold 14 full-time staff people are covering so much territory, global territory around the world. And we can't do it alone. We have to depend on our volunteers, our churches, and, of course, our mission partners. So here's a picture, the next two pictures. This is basically how it works. The church as an individual gives to IDES, and then IDES reaches out through the world, the United States and the world, to help those who are hurting. And if we have more churches and more individuals giving, the more individuals and communities we can help around the world. So IDES has 5 focus areas. They are disaster response, community development, medical care, and hunger relief. All of these are centered around evangelism. We want to have an incredible impact evangelistically. We want what we are doing to make an impact, make a difference. And so everybody that will send us an application, they apply. Sometimes it's immediately. They send it right away when a disaster has happened. They apply for a grant. Then our board, as well as some of our people that are involved on our staff will get together every week, and they talk about what the disaster is and how we can help, and we send relief funds that way. And one of the questions on there is, how will this help win people to Christ? And I think that's significant. So everything I does revolves around the central purpose of sharing the love and truth of Jesus. Now, let me take you through how evangelism works. And we mentioned this in the first service. The Karen tribe, Hill tribe, is in Thailand. And so IDES provided funds to deliver unmilled rice to 7 Karen Hill villages whose rice and fields were destroyed by flooding. Part of the rice was consumed immediately, and the remaining unmilled rice was used for planting. So here's some of the slides of, you can see a number of bags of rice there that was handed out. Takes a few people to probably pick one of those up. And some of the slides that we have here, here's another one of our mission partners delivering the unmilled rice. And because of that, the evangelists that were giving it out would go back, and they started talking to the people, because these people have no church home. They don't know, a lot of them don't know who Jesus is. And so they go back and they begin talking to them and working with them. And this happened back in January, and the results were really amazing. 11 baptisms resulting from the follow-up work in relations to the IDES grant that was used to help the flood victims at Grace and Mercy Foundation. Then we have another project that we have been working. We've been working with the Christian Missionary Fellowship in Kenya for quite some time, and about 2005, the missionaries in Kenya, working with the Turkana, were wondering, how can we help the Turkana people? They lived in a desert area. They were nomads. They would travel from water source to water source with their cattle. But they were also very highly dependent, about 9 to 10 months out of the year, dependent on outside sources for their food. People like IDES that would send them boxes of food or maybe bags of rice. And so they began praying about it and thinking about it, and it came that they discovered deep well waters. If you plant a deep well water, then the fresh water could come up, and then they started thinking about how they could use that to help them and train them to become farmers, to work the land. And that's what's been happening since 2005. I joined with them in 2014, and since that time we have established 30 new farms. And so it's been a pretty amazing to see, and we are doing 10 more farms this year, and have invested over $500,000 for that. And the results from this investment: each farm feeds 10 families, about 100 people. 900 families now have access to irrigated farming. There have been 1,138. We depend on CMF to give us these figures. The disciple groups with 9,000 members, 96 church planted, and over 7,000 people have been baptized since 2017. What they do is they use the farms as a place that gather the people. So many of them will gather under a tree and call it church, And so they would gather the people at the farms, and they had disciple-making groups, and they start talking about Scripture. Now, keep in mind, the Turkana, most of them they do not read or write, and so they tell the story, and so they pass those stories along to others. And we are so thrilled to be a part of this, and see how God is working. Right now, at the last count, I think there's over 300 churches in Kenya that they call it Community Christian Church that came established missionaries from Christian Missionary Fellowship. We also provide medical care. You probably know of FAME. They're the medical evangelists that's been around about as long as we have, and a lot of times we interchange with them when we work side by side with FAME, and so we help provide medical care. And here's some of the examples of that. We helped with Dr. Ajay Law in Central India Christian Mission. Just this past year, we were able to help them with 50 cleft palate surgeries with children. And it changes their lives. It makes a huge impact. We've provided personal protective equipment in places like Honduras. And then we have partnered with CMSI. CMSI is Christian Mission of South India. This year, we're partnering with them, and we're going to have over 100 clinics, medical clinics, and most of this is dealing with eyeglasses. And so they go and they help people be able to see better. And here we sponsored one back in 2019, and so we have taken on the challenge to do over 100 of these. I think the last count was 125. And then we came alongside CRAM, which stands for Christ Reaching Asia Missions. And this group, we partnered with them in February of last year when COVID-19 started to happen. And we wanted to help the people of China because they were experiencing a shortage of their personal protective equipment. And so we, in February, partnered with CRAM along with FAME, and you can see here some of the distribution in China. And then in April of that same year, last year, we were able to partner again with CRAM and bring the personal protective equipment from China back to the United States. Because we were hurting for it, if you recall. And so we were able to help with that. And here you see one of the leaders of CRAM here in the United States also delivering some of the masks to the first responders. Then we help in places like in Haiti with pharmacies, help establish that. And that leads us to community development. Community development is one of these areas that has been growing for us. And we've seen some incredible things happening here too. IDE's mission partners help people create a better future for themselves and their children by providing them with a hand up instead of just a hand out. And that's the purpose of the community development, to help establish something in their lives. So like training them to farm or teaching them to sew, those kinds of things that helps them establish a way of life. And last year we gave over $340,000 for community development. Here's some of the things that we did. We do a lot of well water. We dig wells, clean water. And here you see that in Ghana, we established a well there. We also have been working in places like India. You can see there a motorcycle. I love the name of that motorcycle is Hero Honda. And the evangelist drives that everywhere. I wish I could show you they sent us about 20 videos of the evangelists getting on their motorcycles, and they were doing like these cameos where they would drive by the camera and wave at the camera. It was just kind of fun to see. They got so excited about their motorcycles. And Roy Knight heads the Arise Shine Church of Christ Mission in India, and IDES is partnering with Roy for food distribution and the purchase of 25 motorbikes. Just this year, we're doing that this year. And then here's the Turkana Farms. You can see a little bit of what we are doing there and how those are established. And then we also have been working with the Philippines. Harvest for Christ Foundation, they established some livelihood grants. Last year, 77% of the micro and small farms and 62% of the medium-sized farms all had to close because of COVID. one of the most devastating things about COVID wasn't COVID. It was the infrastructure shutting down. People have livelihoods that they're dependent on. And we'll show you how that happened in places like India. So we provide them with hands-up assistance, and here you see one of the villagers getting a cow. It will transform his life. And then the evangelists follow up with that. And then we've also worked in places like Mai Sot, Thailand. One of our executive director emeritus now, Rick Jad, a few years ago, went to Mai Sot, Thailand, and saw just the horrible conditions that people were living in near the trash heaps and living off anything they could scrounge out of that. And he began talking with our mission partners there. What could we do? How can we remedy some of this situation? And they decided that the best way would be to start with children and train children and teach children. And so a school has been established, and then we provided funds for that pavilion in the back. And our mission partners, they are on the front line for the sex trafficking trade. And so they get women and children out of that trade, and then they have to train and teach them new skills. And so we provide things like the sewing machines, the bicycles, so that they can learn a trade, and then she'll have a place to be able to load up her bicycle and take it into town to sell her wares. You can see there's some it's tradition in their land to wear this kind of heavy cake makeup. It is basically sunscreen, and so it's become a tradition for them to wear. And then we also worked in Zimbabwe with Hippo Valley Mission. I don't know if you know about Zimbabwe, the Hippo Valley. It's been around for a number of years. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was established and has been doing phenomenal work. And every year they host all their evangelists, their young preachers, to come in for a week of training. And we provide food for that week, and then we ask them, what else do you need? And one of our community development is we and you can see it in we have a little magazine back there. It talks about all the different things that you can purchase. It's kind of a gift magazine, and you can purchase cows and sheep and donkeys, and there you saw a picture of goats. And here it is, our national emergency gift thing. And so every minister there got a goat. And it was fun to see them get the goat and then get on a bus with their goat. And it worked out so well. We're doing it again this year. But we've upped the ante. We're also giving them cows. And I can't wait to see that on a bus, but anyways, so check out our gift catalog. And then one of our biggest things that we do is hunger relief, and let me share with you how we do that. We fund both long and short-term hunger relief efforts, providing nutritious meals to those in need. Last year we had 35 hunger relief projects in 10 nations. Over 1 million meals were packed. We have a GAP meal events. There were 37 of them last year, and that was pretty good, especially in COVID. 7.5 million meals, and I think it's now over 8 million. I think we finally passed 8 million, and over $600,000 for hunger relief. So we have 3 opportunities: the GAP program, Harvest of Talents, and Sunfish Banks. 100% of these programs go to feed the hunger. The GAP stands for God Always Provides, and so it's a way for churches to group together. So if you all wanted to do a GAP meal event here, you could use this room right here, or maybe have a fellowship hall, whatever room that you would like to deem, and you can get as many people as you can to come. And we usually set up 2 tables and maybe 10 people, 8 to 10 people working those tables. And it's just a great time for people to gather together, and they pack meals. And I'll show you pictures here. You can see it's a little bag, and I have some samples on my display table, and it's full of rice and nutrients and soy, and it's something that doesn't taste all that bad, even for us Americans, and then we send that to various parts, and some of them that we've sent to. Right now, we have a program where we're working with one of our mission partners in Afghanistan, and here's a picture of that. This picture it just takes my breath away. This was just a couple of months ago. And so you can see, you can't see it very clearly, but those boxes that are back there are all IDES boxes. Each box holds 48 of the bags, and each bag has 6 meals in them. And so Epic is our mission partners. They work closely with Southeast Christian Church in Louisville. And here they are. The guy that's talking, kind of the baldish guy there, is one of the team members, and he's with the guy that's, it's hard to see, but he's with the suit and tie. He is the Minister of Immigrant Affairs in Afghanistan. It's a big deal. There's a guy over there on the left, and he's holding, you can't see it as well in this picture here, but he's holding an AK-47. So he's the minister's entourage, protection. And so it's still a hostile land. It's still in need. And so we're just so grateful for Epic and how they're stepping up to meet that need. And here you see the results of, and we also work in Haiti and Panama. Then we also have another thing called Harvest of Talents. It was created back in 1984 at Lincoln Christian Church. And so we have churches that do this on an annual basis. They do a Harvest of Talents. It's a year-long thing that they do. So what it is very, very simple. The next slide will show church members and people of the community come together by bringing items that are handmade and sold off at auctions or through purchases. Some examples are people make quilts and paintings and needlepoint, crochet, woodwork, furniture, wall hangings, wreaths, Christmas ornaments, goodie baskets that include gift certificates from local merchants, and food, lots and lots of food. And here in these slide here, you can see how they put all the items out. You can see some of the paintings and see all kinds of really interesting things. And so, they have these auctions. It's like an auction. You go and who will bid on this? 100% of the money goes to feed the hunger. So what happens is kind of funny. I've been to a few of these, and at the end of the day, they've fed everybody, and they have things left over from the food that they served. They were literally bidding $20 to $25 on green beans, and it's like, green beans, $25, but they know it's going to hunger, and that's what it's all about. They have a lot of fun with it, and we, if you're interested, we've got a brochure that talks all about it. I'd love to talk to you about Harvest of Talents. Also, keep in mind with Harvest of Talents, if you, as an individual, want to contribute to it, you can, if you make quilts or if you make needlepoint, whatever, you can send that to us at our home office, and we will make sure it gets into the next auction so that can be sold off. And then we have sunfish banks, and I have some sunfish banks back there, individuals. It's got a little card inside that tells you how you can send the funds to IDES. We don't expect you to send the entire fish full of coins because it would cost more than what probably was in it, But we would have you write a check for that funds, and again, 100% goes to feed the hungry. We've collected over $1 million just from fish, and again, it's been in existence for about 28 years. And let me share with you just briefly about the IDES, our response to the COVID-19. Last year, we gave $1.1 million. It's probably a lot more than that because it also went into our hunger needs because so many were without hunger. We were in 34 countries in 8 states. So when COVID started happening, I began making phone calls to churches in hot spots like in New York and in places in California. and see what their needs were. We had one particular woman, minister's wife, told me horrific situation in Queens, New York. And so we were able to help with them and send them funds so they could do every day take a car. They had to borrow a car because mass transportation, nobody wanted to take it, even if it was running. And they would drive into a Costco 20, 30 miles away, pick up the items, bring it back, and then they divide the items. You remember the days when you could only buy one thing of toilet paper because there wasn't toilet paper? So they would take one package of toilet paper and divide it up amongst all their parishioners and their community that lived near the church to deliver. And back to that next slide, as COVID, and the slide before that, as COVID-19 pandemic spread around the world, food insecurity has nearly doubled to 265 million people. In places like India, COVID-19 shut down the infrastructure that is needed to get the harvested food to market, and so millions went hungry as crops went unharvested or thrown out. So they had to be, they had to get rid of it because they needed to plant their next harvest, their next field, and it was such a devastating thing to the farmers, to the migrant workers. It just a domino effect that affected people, and so we had to respond to that. And here you see, one of the mission partners just putting a COVID-19 emergency relief on their van and taking food items like rice, bags of rice. We helped a lot in India, and here you see some of the children and the food that we provided there. We also helped in the United States quite a bit, and this is some teachers in our local area in Noblesville, Indiana, and they were just worried about their students because now the schools were closed down, and a lot of these students depended on hot meals every day. So we came alongside them to help get the food distributed. And this is that church in Queens. The pastor's wife was telling me that they had one of their parishioners, one of their members, had surgery scheduled on a Monday, and she got a phone call on a Sunday that the doctor had passed from COVID-19. It was just so devastating on that community. And then, of course, disaster response is part of our name and some of the things that we've been doing. And 179 disaster response projects in 30 nations last year. And here are some of those as a result. So if you take it to the top left there, it started with tornadoes in Tennessee, and then we had a derecho, the picture down from there, derecho in Iowa, and over to the far right corner, you see the flooding. That's central Michigan. So we've been able to come alongside a church that's going into there. There wasn't a church established in that area that we were working in. And so one of our partners that was going there anyways, he started talking to the people. And so their church is planting a church in central Michigan in the hardest hit areas. And we have also put up storage sheds, which I'll explain to you in just a minute. And of course, we dealt with forest fires out west, and then volcano in the Philippines, and then of course COVID-19. And then volunteers work with our disaster response team in the aftermath of a disaster, assisting in tree removal, cleaning up debris, mucking homes, repairing roofs, cooking and serving meals, and building storage sheds. The storage sheds came about after tornadoes back in 2012. They were just devastated in so many different areas in Indiana, in Kentucky, and we had already started dealing with storage sheds and seeing what that would bring. And so when a person has a tornado go through, their house may still be standing, part of it anyways, but in order to rebuild, they've got to get everything out of their house. But most of the time, local storage has no place. So they built we started building storage sheds, and they put it right on their property, and they are able to store anything that they need in there, and that's theirs to keep. And so we work through churches, and the church brings in the volunteers, and we're able to build these storage sheds. The next slide. You see one of the results of that. In 2016, we were in Clendenin, West Virginia. We worked with a church that wasn't in the area, but they could bring in a lot of people to help us with the shed program. And you see that house, you can see the flood, you see how high it got. And so her entire house had to be mucked, all the drywall taken out in order to get her back on her feet. And so while they were starting to do that, in the next slide, we were able to put up this storage shed. Her name was Rose, and Rose, I remember Rose telling me, she just looked at me and said, I don't know what we would do without the church. And that was music to our ears because it's about the church. We want our local churches to be able to establish relationships that will lead to people win to Christ. So we're highly dependent on our volunteers of all ages. Here, the storage sheds are being put together, and they'll be loaded on a truck. We can get 10 of our storage sheds on a truck. We also have volunteers that come we have a gap room at our headquarters, so we have volunteers that come in there to help us with meals. And then, of course, getting out on the front line after disaster. It's not for everyone. It's hard work. Sometimes you have to live not in a hotel because the hotels are all closed. You have to live most of the time in a church, either a church sanctuary or a church classroom, and so it's pretty rough. This past year, in January 1st, started David Stein took over for executive director. He'd been working with IDES for the last 5 years as our operations director, and it just seemed like the perfect time because Rick Jett, who's been there for 19 years as a director, has some health issues, and it was just kind of pushed forward him retiring. So he'll be fully retired come this September. In 1 John 3:18, it says, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." And everything that I showed you today, you all are a part of. You are blessing us with your monthly support, and because of that, it's making a huge impact and making a difference. We have some training if you're interested. One of the things that we try to do is we want to get people in churches ready to respond. So we have a prepare to respond. Ed Sano is our teacher, and he does all the training and does an excellent job. He's so qualified. He's had a lot of experience in with community and with also with being a police officer, and just knows his stuff. And he also leads another training. It's a 3-hour training on safe worship, how to prepare your church to be as safe as possible. In this day and age, you can't do enough, can you? It's unfortunate, but we offer those two free of charge. If you're interested, love to talk to you about that. And then we also did a VBS thing. That handsome guy worked hard last year. No, there's no reaction. I thought somebody would at least giggle. Okay, my wife's giggling anyways. That's me, in case you were wondering. You can't see it. It's hard, I know. But anyways, last summer during COVID, we decided we were going to film an epic adventure called Indiana Josh. And I played Indiana Josh in search of the lost relic. I don't know where we got the idea. We're in Indiana. My name's Jeff, but we changed it to Josh for this. And anyways, so we toured around Indiana, going to parks and filming this thing. It's pretty good. I kind of think we did a pretty good job with it, if I don't say so. The acting's but the film is awesome. The photography, is just exceptional. And we had a lot of fun. It's kind of an adventure of what IDES does in various parts of the world. And you check it out. It can be used for VBS, or it can be used for any kind of children's programming. Two major projects for 2021. We've been in Lake Charles. We've wrapped that up, but we still could use the funds to support it. We were raising $150,000 for that. Lake Charles was a unique situation last year. In the middle of COVID, they had not one, but two hurricanes hit. Hurricane Laura, and then 40-some days later, Hurricane Delta. People were still under tarps when Hurricane Delta hit them. So the tarps were ripped off and flooding in their house. The second hurricane really did most of the damage because they hadn't repaired anything from the first one, even though it was the strongest hurricane to ever hit that area. But that second hurricane really did a lot of damage. And so we've been down there working and helping with 30 homes, getting them back on. I think we ended up with 34 homes actually getting them back on their feet. Just amazing. We have some videos on our website if you want to check them out that talks about Lake Charles. And then the other one is the other project we're doing this year is with the Turkana Farms and the Discovery Bible studies that are there. Just again, it's changing their culture, changing their livelihood, changing their lives. 50% of their children that were born would end up dying before a year, and that's changing. And we appreciate your prayers. We can't do this without prayer. One of the things that I love about IDES is that every day, Monday through Friday, we are spending time in prayer. We meet at 9 o'clock every day except Tuesday. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we meet at 9 o'clock to pray. On Tuesdays, we divide up individually, and we pray all day long. So from the early morning all the way through the time we leave, somebody's in prayer that day. So it just has been a blessing for me to be able to be a part of that. And then lately, on every Friday, we've been having one of our mission partners come and share about their work. That's been good. So pray. If you want to volunteer, get on our volunteer list. We'd love for you to do that you'd be ready to go into a disaster situation. That'd be awesome. And then, of course, donate. We are grateful that this church does that. So grateful. So the statement was, we would have a stronger witness in the world if we would cooperate together. So this past year was our largest outreach we've ever had in 1 year. I think it was 42 countries, 42 nations. And you can see all the different nations that we helped last year. Now, because it has a tag like in India, we were there in multiple places, but it counted as just one country. And then this is what have done since it started in 1973, 127 nations. Right now, we are looking at India. The other hot spot right now is Myanmar, and please pray for our mission partners in Myanmar. They're faced with all kinds of just hostile situation with the government there, and we just want you to pray for them. This past week, we just approved funds to go to a children's orphanage for them to build a wall around the orphanage. It probably won't keep out any tanks, but it will at least give them a sense of security to help them, especially any kind of bullets that go by or whatever. And this is our team, and this is our address, and physical address, as well as our mailing address. And I've got all of that on the table. So that's I think that's the last one, right, Patty? Last slide. So does anybody have any questions for me? I talked a lot, and you might have had a question way back on slide 2. I don't know. And I can ramble with the best of them. I really appreciate it. We have been so blessed with our church partners over the years. You all have been such an incredible partner with us for many years, and we're grateful for that. Yes, Brother Bruce. Yes. Bruce wants to know if the wall that we built around the orphanage is that because of the violence that's in the area, or is it to protect from Christian persecution, that kind of thing? The answer, I think, is yes. I think it's probably both of those. I know that one of the things that the Civil War that's going on has been spilling out. So some of our mission partners have been directly involved with people coming down from the mountains on wooden rafts. And they come, and just so happens they come right to the area where our mission partners are. So the mission partners give them housing. You know, it's not like great housing, it's like a tent. And they give them food, and they also present the gospel to them. But then in the cities, in the towns, like where this orphanage is, yeah, there's been some violence that's going on where and I don't want to talk too much because I think we're online as well, but the government is some of the hostility that's going on there. They're trying to protect them as much as possible, and a wall kind of helps them with that situation. Does that answer that question? That's good. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, he wants to know if we have a need for volunteers for gap meal. Is that what you're asking? Always, we need volunteers for all of that. Right now, we have where if you would go to the table and you could sign up as a volunteer, we'll put that into our volunteer list. We have a list that we keep. There's probably 200 to 300 people that are kind of on call. So when a disaster happens, we go through the list and say, hey, this is the disaster. This is what we're doing. Can you come? Some people have to drop everything, and people that are working, it's a little bit tougher, but other people are able to do that and can come to a disaster situation, especially if you have skills. We want people with skills that can do it, but that's not a prerequisite of doing it. We just need boots on the ground to help us. It doesn't take a lot of skills to clear, brush out of or get trees out of a house, that kind of thing. It takes just a lot of manual labor. The IDES gap meals, we do them, all the time. We're always doing them, and we actually can go to the church to do that. So if you all wanted to do that, there's a fee that's involved. I think it's 25 cents a meal when we travel outside. But it's, it's whatever you can afford, but it gives people the opportunity to serve in a unique way. We get to serve together, and all ages, the youngest to the oldest, can do something in that. So does that answer your question on that? Okay. So yeah, always and so one of the things that we're also looking for is anchor churches that will say, yeah, we will be a anchor church that when a disaster happens in our area, we can get everything and mobilize from that church into the area. And so we're doing that as well. Yes, sir. Oh, yes. Yes. Even as far back as I guess it was about last January, February, we were in the Bahamas helping with that situation because that hurricane that came through just devastated that area in the Bahamas, the Grand Bahamas, just awful. And so we were able to partner with a church in Grand Bahama to help that community. That's fantastic. And then, of course, Houston was pretty devastating as well. So, yes, ma'am, in the back. Right. She is 100% correct. Even if she wasn't, she's 100% correct. No, she's right. That we do that all the time, where we have small groups come in and take a little field trip. You're less than 4 hours away to IDE's headquarters. It's just straight down, right above Indianapolis. So if you ever want to do something like that, that's great too. So, very good. Well, I guess our time is up. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all. And again, we hope and pray God's blessings upon you as you leave today. And let me close with prayer. Father God, we are so grateful for your grace. We're thankful for Plainfield and what they mean to IDES. Our partnership over the years has been just fantastic, and we're grateful that they have a heart and they understand what IDES is all about. And Lord, we pray that you'll bless all of our mission partners, from those that are in hostile situations to others who are in places that just need people to come and help, whether it's COVID relief or help with flood relief. Whatever the case may be, Father, we just pray that you'll provide us with the means and the volunteers to do that. God, bless us this day, and all we do is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all.